My name is Grace. I am 28 years old. I live in a small town in England. My house is small, but I keep it clean. I live alone now. It is quiet, and sometimes I feel sad, but it is also safe. That is important to me. I did not always live alone. I was married. My husband's name was David. We met when I was 22. At first, he was kind. He smiled a lot. He bought me coffee. He called me beautiful. I felt lucky. I thought I found the right man. We got married after 1 year. My friends said it was fast. My mother asked, "Are you sure?" I said yes. I was happy and in love. I thought love was enough, but I was wrong. After the wedding, things changed. David stopped smiling. He stopped saying kind words. He said I talked too much. He said I was boring. I tried to make him happy. I cooked his favorite food. I cleaned the house every day. But he never said thank you. He only said, "You can do better." At first, I thought maybe he was tired. He worked long hours. I wanted to help. I spoke softly. I stayed quiet when he was angry. But the more quiet I was, the more he shouted. He said I was useless. He said no one else would want me. I started to believe him. I stopped calling my friends. I did not visit my parents. I stayed home. I was always nervous. My hands shook when I heard the door. I waited for his words. I hoped he would be kind again, but he was not. One night, I made dinner. I tried something new. I wanted him to smile. When he came home, I showed him the food. He looked at the plate. Then he pushed it away. He said, "This looks like trash." My chest hurt. I said nothing. I took the plate and walked to the kitchen. Later that night, I sat in bed. I looked at the ceiling. My eyes were wet. I asked myself, is this love? I remembered the old days, the walks in the park, the talks at night, the way he held my hand. But now, he only saw me when I made a mistake. One day, I went to the shop. I saw an old friend. Her name is Megan. She said, "Grace, where have you been?" I said, "Just busy at home." She looked at my face. She touched my arm and said, "You look tired." I smiled, but it was weak. I said, "I'm fine." We talked for a few minutes. Before I left, she said, "You can call me if you need anything." I nodded. That night, I thought about her words. "If you need anything." I felt warm. I had not heard care in a long time. The days passed. David stayed the same. He shouted when the house was not perfect. He said I was slow. He said I should be like other wives. I said sorry again and again, but sorry was never enough. Then one evening, something changed. David came home late. He looked angry. He threw his keys on the table. He asked, "What did you do all day?" I said, "I cleaned the house." He looked around and said, "It still looks dirty." I felt my stomach turn. I walked to the kitchen. I held the sink. I took deep breaths. I looked at the window. The sky was dark. I felt cold inside. That night, I did not sleep. I sat on the sofa. My hands were shaking. I told myself, this is not okay. I cannot live like this. The next morning, I made tea. I sat at the table. I looked at the wall. I thought about my life. I thought about my smile. I had not smiled in months. I missed myself. I missed peace. I missed feeling safe. Later that week, David had to travel for work. He was gone for 2 days. For the first time in months, the house was quiet in a good way. I cleaned. I cooked something I liked. I listened to music. I opened the window and let in the fresh air. I sat on the floor near the window. I watched the birds. I drank tea. And then I cried. But it was not the same kind of crying. These were soft tears. Tears of something waking up. I whispered, I want a better life. The next morning, I took a walk. I saw Megan again. She smiled and said, Grace, you look different. I said, he is away for work. She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, you can always talk to me. I nodded and said, maybe soon. That night, I did something new. I looked at places to rent. I found a small flat near the town center. It was not big, but it had a little balcony. It had light. It looked warm. I clicked the picture and saved it. David came home the next day. He was tired and quiet. But after a few hours, the shouting started again. He said, you should do better. He said, you never listen. I stood in the kitchen and held the counter. I told myself, this is not love. That night I called Megan. I said, can we meet? She said, yes, anytime. We met the next day at a small cafe. I told her everything. I spoke fast. I cried. She listened. She held my hand. When I finished, she said, Grace, you don't have to live like this. You are not weak. You are not alone. Her words stayed in my heart. I went home. I sat on the bed. I thought for hours. Then I made a choice. I would leave. Not tomorrow, but soon. I needed a plan. I needed to be ready. The next few days were hard. I still lived with David, but my mind was different. I saw the truth now. I saw how he treated me. Before, I thought it was my fault. Now, I knew it was not. David was not always angry. Sometimes he was quiet. Sometimes he brought me flowers. But the kind moments never lasted. They were like small lights in a dark room. The darkness always came back. I started to pack small things when he was not home. I hid the bag in the back of the closet. Just one bag, some clothes, a few photos, my ID, my phone charger. I did not tell anyone. I just waited for the right time. I looked at the flat again online. It was still there. I called the number. A kind woman answered. I asked, is the flat still free? She said yes. I said, can I see it tomorrow? She said yes. The next morning, I told David I was going to the market. I wore a long coat and hid my bag under it. I walked fast. My heart was beating. I reached the flat. The woman opened the door. The flat was small but clean. The kitchen was white. The living room had a big window. I walked to it. I looked outside. The world felt big and quiet. I smiled for the first time in weeks. "I'll take it," I said. I gave her some money I saved in secret. She gave me the key. I held it tight in my hand. I walked back home. That night, I said nothing to David, but inside, I felt strong. The next morning, I left. I woke up early. I took my bag. I looked at the bed. David was still sleeping. I walked to the door. I did not look back. Outside, the sky was gray, but my heart felt light. I took the bus to my new flat. I sat by the window. I watched the houses pass. I felt like a bird flying away. When I reached the flat, I opened the door. I stepped inside. I closed the door behind me. I took a deep breath. I was free. The first night in the new flat was quiet. I sat on the floor with a blanket. I had no sofa yet, no table, just me, a cup of tea, and the sound of the wind outside. It was cold, but I felt peace. I looked around. The room was empty, but it was mine. I did not need to smile if I felt sad. I did not need to say sorry. I did not need to listen to shouting. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I slept on a small mattress on the floor. I woke up early. The sun came through the window. It touched the wall with soft yellow light. I made tea again and sat near the window. The street outside was quiet. I watched people walk. I watched a cat run across the road. I smiled. I made a list in my mind. I needed to find a job. I needed to buy a few things: a chair, a table, a small bed. But first, I needed to rest. My heart was tired. My body was weak. I had been afraid for too long. That afternoon, I called Megan. I told her I left. She cried on the phone. She said, "I'm proud of you." I said, "Thank you for helping me." She said, "You helped yourself, Grace. You are brave." Megan came to visit the next day. She brought some food and a warm blanket. She also gave me a small plant. "It needs care," she said, "but it will grow." I looked at the plant. It was green and soft. I touched the leaves. "Like me," I said. Megan smiled. We sat on the floor and talked. I told her everything: the bad days, the fear, the pain in my chest, the nights I wanted to disappear. She listened. She cried a little too. She said, "You were in a storm, but now you are out." That night, I sat with the plant near the window. I looked at it for a long time. I whispered, "We can grow together." The days passed slowly. I walked around town. I looked at shop windows. I watched people smile. I listened to street sounds. I did not speak to many people, but I started to feel less alone. One morning, I saw a small cafe with a help wanted sign. I stood outside for a minute. Then I walked in. A young woman at the counter smiled. "Hi, can I help you?" I said, "I saw the sign. Are you looking for someone?" She said, "Yes, we are. Do you have experience?" I said, "A little. I can learn fast." She gave me a kind look. "We need someone to help clean the tables and serve tea. You can start next week if you want." I smiled. "Yes, I'd like that." I walked home with a light heart. I had a job now. It was small, but it was a start. That weekend, I bought a second-hand table. It was not perfect, but it was strong. I also bought a chair and a small lamp. I put the lamp on the table and turned it on. The light was soft and warm. I sat down and looked at the room. It was still simple, but it felt like home. I started working at the cafe. The people were kind. The work was not hard. I cleaned, served tea, and sometimes helped carry boxes. My hands were busy, and my heart began to feel lighter. One day, an old man sat at a table alone. I brought him tea. He smiled and said, "Thank you, dear." I smiled back. "You're welcome." He said, "You look like someone with a kind heart." His words stayed with me all day. Each day at work, I felt stronger. I talked to more people. I laughed sometimes. I started to feel like myself again. Not the scared, quiet Grace. The real Grace. The one who loves soft music, warm tea, and the sound of rain. One evening after work, I walked to the park. I sat on a bench and watched the trees move in the wind. I looked at the sky. It was pink and blue, a soft color, a quiet sky. I thought about David. I did not miss him. I missed the person I was before him. But now I was coming back. I still had bad nights. Sometimes I woke up afraid. I dreamed of shouting. I dreamed I was still there. But when I opened my eyes, I saw the soft light of my lamp. I saw the little plant on the table. I remembered, I am safe now. One Sunday, I went to see my parents. I had not seen them in a long time. When I walked through the door, my mother hugged me tight. She cried. "You look thin," she said. My father said, "We missed you." I said, "I'm okay now." We sat at the table and had tea. I told them I left David. My mother looked sad, but then she smiled. "You did the right thing." My father said, "You are always welcome here." I said, "Thank you." It felt good to be back. I started visiting them more. I felt less alone. I talked to Megan every week. I worked at the cafe. I watered my plant. I made soup on cold nights. I wrote in a small notebook, just thoughts. Simple things. I did not write dreams. I wrote moments. A soft rain. A warm blanket. A kind smile. I was healing. One morning, I woke up early. The sun was already shining. I made tea and opened the window. The air was cool. Birds were singing. I sat at the table and looked at my plant. It was bigger now. Its green leaves touched the window light. I smiled. I got ready for work. I wore a soft blue sweater. It was my favorite. At the cafe, the manager smiled at me. "You're always on time," she said. I said, "I like it here." She said, "We like you too." At the cafe, I met new people. One of them was a man named Adam. He came every Thursday. He sat near the window and always ordered tea with honey. One day I brought him his tea. He smiled and said, "Thank you, Grace." I was surprised. "How do you know my name?" I asked. He pointed at my name tag. I laughed. He said, "I like this place. It's quiet." I said, "Me too." After that, we talked a little every Thursday. Just small things, the weather, the tea, the books he read. His smile was kind. His voice was calm. I felt safe when we talked. Weeks passed. I worked. I rested. I saw Megan. I visited my parents. I felt better. One night I looked in the mirror. My eyes looked soft. My face looked calm. I said to myself, "You are healing." One Thursday, Adam stayed longer. The cafe was not busy. He said, "Would you like to walk with me after work?" I was quiet for a second. Then I said, "Yes." We walked through the park. The air was cool. The sky was gray but not sad. We talked about simple things. I felt nervous at first, but Adam did not ask too many questions. He listened. He walked slowly beside me. He did not rush. I liked that. When we reached the end of the path, he said, "Thank you for walking with me." I said, "Thank you for asking." We smiled and said goodbye. That night, I sat on the bed and thought about the walk. I did not feel fear. I felt calm. I said to myself, "It's okay to start again, slowly." We met again the next week, and the week after. Always small walks. Always soft talks. I told Megan. She smiled and said, "Go slow. Trust your heart." One day, Adam said, "Can I ask something?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can we have tea outside work? Just us?" I looked at him. I felt my heart beat fast, but I also felt strong. I said, "Yes." We met at a small cafe in the next street. We sat outside. The wind was soft. I looked at him. I said, "I need to tell you something." He said, "Okay." I told him about David. Not all the pain, but enough. I said, "I lived in fear for years." I looked down. I felt scared, but Adam said nothing right away. Then he said, "Thank you for telling me." His voice was soft. He did not ask more. He just said, "I'm here." That was the moment I knew. He was not like David. He did not push. He did not shout. He gave space. He gave time. Weeks turned to months. I bought a small couch. I got a better mattress. My plant grew more. I even bought a second one. I smiled more at work. I laughed with Megan. I felt alive again. One weekend, Adam helped me carry a new table to my flat. It was light wood with simple legs. We put it near the window. He looked at the plant and said, "It looks happy." I said, "It is." We sat at the new table and drank tea. I looked around. The flat was still small, but it was full of peace. Adam said, "You made a good home." I said, "Thank you. It's my safe place." He stayed for dinner. I cooked soup. We ate slowly and talked about little things. After he left, I sat at the table alone. I touched the plant's leaves. I whispered, "I am okay now." One day, Megan came with flowers. She said, "I have news." I said, "What is it?" She smiled. "I got a new job in another town. I will move next month." I hugged her tight. "I will miss you," I said. She said, "You are strong now. I don't worry about you anymore." The day she left, I walked her to the bus. We hugged again. She said, "Grace, never forget who you are now. Not who you were, who you are today." I watched her bus leave. My eyes were wet, but I smiled. I whispered, "Thank you." Months passed. I worked. I lived. I grew. I kept seeing Adam. We were close now, but I moved slow. He never rushed me. He understood. One evening we sat in the park. The sun was low. The trees moved in the wind. Adam looked at me and said, "You are the bravest person I know." I smiled. "I just wanted peace," I said. He said, "And you found it." I looked at the sky. I said, "I never thought I could be happy again, but now I am." I held his hand. It felt right. That night, I went home. I opened the window. I looked at the stars. I remembered the dark nights, the fear, the pain. But those nights were behind me now. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. This was a new life, my life, and I was free. The next morning I woke up feeling calm. I did not dream of the past. I did not wake up afraid. I made tea and opened the window. The sky was blue. A soft wind moved the leaves outside. My flat was quiet, but it did not feel empty. It felt peaceful. I walked to the cafe as usual. On the way, I passed the shop where I once saw the "Help Wanted" sign. I stopped and looked at it. I smiled. That small sign changed my life. It gave me work. It gave me people. It gave me a place to feel normal again. At work, the manager asked if I wanted more hours. I said yes. I was ready. I was not afraid anymore. I could do more. I could grow. She said, "You're doing well, Grace." I said, "Thank you. I feel better now." That weekend, I invited Adam to dinner. I cooked pasta. I lit a candle on the new table. We sat and talked for hours. I told him about my first happy memory as a child. He told me about his sister and how they played in the snow. We laughed a lot. After dinner, we sat near the window. The moon was big and white. He said, "You are strong, Grace." I looked at him and said, "I did not feel strong before, but now I do." He took my hand and said, "I see it in your eyes." We sat in silence for a while. Then I said, "I don't want to rush life. I just want to feel it." He nodded. "Me too," he said. Before he left, he looked at me and said, "You saved yourself, Grace. You chose a better life." I smiled. "Yes," I said. "And now I choose peace." After he left, I stood by the window. The plant on my table moved in the breeze. I touched its leaves. "We're still growing," I whispered. I turned off the light. I got into bed. The room was dark but warm. I felt safe, and as I closed my eyes, I knew one thing clearly. The past did not break me. It shaped me. And now I was finally whole.